The Black Death didn't just kill millions, it forever changed Europe's financial system, trade routes, and people's relationship with money. So how did this unseen enemy bring the economy to its knees? Without understanding this, it's impossible to understand today's crises. So, I suggest you don't leave the video. The implementation of ceiling prices for essential items by cities failed to control shortages because they were impossible to enforce. The massive number of deceased artisans made it difficult for guilds to maintain their member support through resource distribution and emergency production organization. The breakdown of international credit systems occurred because lenders refused to fund distant trade operations, because ship personnel and merchants and insurance providers faced high risks of death before completing their journeys. The economic structure of Europe became unstable because different regions adopted their own survival strategies. The plague exposed humanity to understand that money derives its actual worth from human existence. The Black Death eliminated all false beliefs about wealth existing independently from human society. Gold appears valuable, but it requires human presence to construct buildings and cultivate crops and protect nations. Every civilization recognizes that its most powerful currency consists of its human population. People rather than money became the foundation which supports the survival of civilization. The entire community started to focus on different priorities after understanding that human beings maintain civilization. People started to value their skills in farming and carpentry and medical practices. Communities dedicated their resources to building local self-sufficiency through grain storage facilities and communal baking facilities and shared workshop spaces. Families taught their children vital survival skills to guarantee their family's continued existence. People started to understand that social connections and useful skills held equal value to monetary wealth. The plague made people understand that human existence stood as the single asset which could not be replaced. The Black Death created a new European landscape after Europe recovered from its devastating period. Workers gained the ability to express their opinions. Social advancement started to become possible. Economic power now distributed itself across multiple social classes instead of remaining under the exclusive domain of aristocrats. The concept of human capital as value driver emerged from the Black Death, which remains a fundamental economic principle in modern times. Municipal governments underwent fast-paced development throughout the recovery period. The political system of some towns underwent changes when they started to include merchants and artisans and guild leaders in decision-making positions which used to belong to nobles. The new leaders took charge of reconstruction projects while handling abandoned properties and worked to attract new residents for uninhabited areas. The redistribution of power established a diverse political environment which based its decisions on economic abilities instead of noble heritage, thus creating essential elements for contemporary civic development. The Black Death caused more than death because it transformed how people understand wealth and power structures and monetary systems. A worldwide disaster created a new economic framework from the remains of the previous world. When a society loses its population, its monetary system collapses before its population dies out. The Black Death brought about a complete economic collapse to Europe through its massive death toll. From 1340 onward, Europe maintained confidence about its financial stability. The kingdoms operated with flowing gold while their markets remained active, and their tax revenues continued to rise. The actual base of wealth existed beyond physical coins. The economic system depended on workers who included farmers and builders and merchants and sailors. The system required these hands to survive. The plague brought about a complete disappearance of the workforce that sustained the entire economic system. The ruling class of kings and nobles used their ledgers to accumulate coins because they believed their vaults would protect them from danger. The plague showed no respect for social status or financial wealth because it entered both royal courts and poor dwellings without discrimination. The plague struck down queens and advisors and financial managers who handled royal finances, which proved that gold reserves failed to protect the kingdom from human suffering. The eastbound ships brought merchandise and textiles, and an undetected rat-borne plague, which spread across European ports during 1347. The plague spread from port to port throughout Europe during the first few weeks of its outbreak. The streets became deserted. The sound of bells continued non-stop as people died. Cities experienced unprecedented death rates before they could grasp the extent of their loss. The financial system of Europe began to collapse at the same time as the devastating plague outbreaks. The loss of elite merchant families created financial disasters, which destroyed the vital economic networks of major trading centers. The death of essential contract holders made all valuable agreements worthless. Ships backed by wealthy sponsors remained idle because their owners never returned to make vital decisions. The banks of Venice and Genoa faced challenges to find surviving family members for account settlement because all their bloodlines had vanished. The European commercial system lost its foundation when bills of exchange became worthless papers that circulated between abandoned counting houses without owners. The economic system came to a standstill because workers across all kingdoms started dying. The fields remained unplanted, while workshops remained idle and ships carried full cargo without any crew members. A king who possessed vast amounts of gold became unable to purchase basic food items because he lacked sufficient workers. The value of money disappeared because the people who created its worth had vanished from the world. Multiple cities experienced treasury protection failures, which resulted in instant deaths of guards who left their door keys suspended from locks when officials discovered the bodies. The coin chests remained unattended because their value did not affect the situation, although no one remained to handle their management. The administrative process of estates with substantial wealth came to a standstill because there were no living heirs or stewards or scribes to maintain property records. The wealth remained as an unspoken memorial for deceased people who left behind empty rooms that accumulated dust while waiting for hands that would never return to retrieve it. The Middle Ages experienced their most significant economic transformation during this period. The reduced population created a situation where surviving workers became extremely valuable to society. The European market experienced a fundamental shift because labor became so scarce that ordinary people became the most valuable assets in the region. The new economic system allowed workers to receive wages that exceeded all previous records. The workforce gained freedom to select their employers because they no longer needed to seek employment. The European continent experienced its first major wage revolution during this period. The surviving workers gained complete freedom to leave bad employers and obtain written contracts and seek better pay in different towns. The peasant class now had access to move between regions for better employment opportunities, which had previously been out of reach. The ruling class lost control as workers gained power to leave abusive employers and negotiate better terms, and move to towns with higher wages. The social hierarchy underwent a transformation because workers now used direct speech to address lords, which was previously considered impossible. The ruling elite experienced extreme fear because their authority depended on affordable labor that followed orders without question. The ruling class attempted to restore the pre-plague economic system through forced implementation of outdated systems. The English government passed the Statute of Labourers in 1351 to prohibit wage increases and force workers to accept pre-plague wage rates. Economic facts proved stronger than all attempts to enforce laws through the law. The disappearance of half the population forced leaders to accept new power dynamics, even though they opposed it. Rulers established strict rules to defend their declining power base through financial penalties for estate departures and wage negotiation penalties and monitoring systems to maintain worker adherence to previous contracts. The scarcity of workers proved to be an insurmountable challenge because these restrictions did not work. Workers left their homes to move into neighboring towns because these communities provided attractive employment benefits. The efforts to restore the previous social order created an increasing gap between wealthy elites and the numerous workers who fought for existence in this new reality. The European economy experienced rising wages and rising prices, which led to the breakdown of numerous estates because there were insufficient workers to sustain them. The economic power of landowners who controlled everything before the plague disappeared. The peasants who had endured poverty for many years started to gain power in the market while obtaining better working conditions and freedom to move between locations. Some historians identify the Black Death as the point when feudalism started its decline. The disappearance of obligations forced communities to establish new ways of interacting with their land resources. The former serfs obtained new land rights through plot purchases and entered free, man-only profit-sharing agreements. The control of estates that ruled multiple regions for many years disappeared through complete ownership changes and property division. The legal system faced challenges to adapt its laws about tenancy and inheritance because workers now control the market. The feudal system disappeared through economic requirements instead of direct rebellion. The market system underwent significant changes during this period. The availability of food products decreased, while their prices rose to unaffordable levels. The trade networks experienced deterioration. The empty treasuries of kingdoms led them to establish 3 different monetary policies, which included tax hikes and currency devaluation and price manipulation to show early signs of monetary instability. The world experienced an unusual combination of rising prices and elevated employee compensation and failing economic systems. The plague created a new financial structure for Europe by altering its economic foundation.